Okay, in this video we're going to look at prototyping and breadboarding using these solderless breadboards, which are quite common. And I want to focus on push button switches. Now, normally when you build a project, there is usually a need for a push button switch. It can be used to reset a microcontroller, an input to one of the GPIOs, or to switch power or ground to certain parts of the circuit. Now, in the past, when I needed a push button switch, I would use the common tactile switch. They're cheap and easy to get. But I found they would not fit properly on the breadboard, and they would come out when they were pressed, and it was quite frustrating. So I went on a search for another type of push button, and this is the one I found here. It's made by Grayhill. It's a side mount push button. It has 4 terminals, and they're a straight pin, gold plated, and they insert into the breadboard very easily. And this one here is a normally open push button switch, and I have it hooked up to the Arduino Nano, and I have a little toggle program running, so you can see I'm toggling pin 13. So I'm using a software debounce program to debounce the switch. So if you need a normally open push button switch, you could use this. If you need a normally closed push button switch, you could use this one. Or even if you need a single pull double throw switch, you could use this. So like you have 3 switches in one. So we'll have a look at the schematic of this switch and see how it works. So here's the schematic of the Grayhill push button switch. You can see the 4 terminals on the switch, and the top 2 terminals are normally closed, and the bottom 2 terminals are normally open. So if you need a normally closed switch in your circuit, you use the top 2 terminals, and when you press down on the switch, it would open up the 2 terminals. And if you need a normally open switch, you would use the bottom 2 terminals, and when you press down on a switch, it would short those terminals out. Now, if you need a single pull double throw, you would connect a jumper between these 2 terminals, and that would be your common. And then this terminal will be one throw, and this terminal will be other throw. So this is handy for using in a contact bounce circuit, a hardware contact bounce circuit where you need a single pull double throw, and we'll look into a schematic for that. Okay, here's a schematic of a RS flip-flop using NAND gates, and you could use this circuit to debounce a push button switch. And if you notice, the push button switch is a single pull double throw, which we could use our Grayhill switch in this application. And this is probably the best hardware solution for debouncing a push button switch. And you could also use a D flip-flop instead of building an RS flip-flop from NAND gates, and you get the same results. And you could also use the Grayhill switch in this application also. So I have used this little Grayhill push button switch on many projects that I have built on solderless breadboards, and it worked out very well. Also use it on a solder type breadboard such as this, and also in the final product such as this on a PC board. And you can see it's very easy to access the push button switch when even though it's a 90-degree type, and it works quite well. Okay, since we're on the subject of breadboarding, here's a few more tips. You could buy little toggle switches that can mount on the breadboard, made by the same company that makes the push button, made by Grayhill. And these are single pull double throw, so you could actually use the RS flip-flop circuit to debounce them. You could also get rocker switches. I know these are single pull single throw. And if you ever need to hook up, say, a sensor to your breadboard to hook up to, say, the Arduino Nano, and the sensor has a larger gauge stranded wire which won't fit into the breadboard, you could get this little dip package. It's 8-pin and has little solder cups. And you can actually solder the wires to each one of these cups and then insert it in the board and then get access to them through the breadboard. Another way is through the terminal block like this. It has screw terminals which you loosen up and you insert the wires in here and you plug it into the breadboard, then you get access to the wires coming through the breadboard. Now you could get this is a 2-terminal, you can get this in up to 8 or 12, so depending on how many wires you need, you just get a bigger terminal block. So that's basically a few more tips for breadboarding on the solderless breadboards.